Hey, it's Kelly Colby here. I wanted to talk about something that is still, it's painful in a lot of ways. Part of being out here on YouTube and blogging is being transparent. And it's about, going through your struggles and letting people know what your struggles are and what they have been, and really being transparent about them. And, your story is so important because your story actually helps people to connect with you. Um, your story shouldn't be something that you get sympathy for. It should be something that touches people, inspires people, and lets people know that you're real. So, one of the stories that I want to share is probably my most personal struggle. Um, I had gotten a divorce from, somebody I had been friends with growing up, and we were married for 17 years. And while the marriage wasn't bad, it was actually a good marriage. We stayed friends. We just were in two different places and going in two different places. I really wanted to go out and help people, and he wasn't of the same mindset. And I knew I just couldn't continue to do that anymore. And my focus was really going off to medical school and getting to explore who I was as a woman. My kids were older, and and I had raised them. And I wanted to know who I was as a woman because I got married when I was really young. I got married when I was 19. So I've had kids and I was married young. So I've never really gotten to experience who I was. I didn't really party. I didn't really do any of the things that normal people do, that don't have the responsibilities of a family very young. And it's not to say that I think, partying is the way. I just didn't know who I was outside of being a wife and a mother. So I had my hopes and my dreams and my goals. And then I happened to fall in love. And as we know, a lot of times that really takes us off track. And I found that maybe my goals weren't really what I wanted. Maybe I wanted something else. So it really had me dig deeper. I ended up getting pregnant. And this was at really the height of my career in my wellness businesses. And he looked at me, and he's older, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you trying to trap me?" And I was shocked. I was shocked because I was very successful, and I've never wanted anything from a man. I've never wanted a man to be the one that controlled everything and made the money while I stayed home. I'm a powerful person, and I always wanted to be a contributor. I always wanted to be going towards my goals. And to be honest, I was shocked. I was really, really shocked because I really had my life together. So, needless to say, that set the pregnancy out on not really a good tone. And him being older, I don't think he really wanted more kids. His kids were older and had moved out of the house and everything else. And I just don't think he wanted to start over. And I was perfectly prepared to raise a baby by myself. And he said, well, I think that we should give this a shot, and I think that we should, just see what happens. And I should have known from the get-go that that just wasn't anything that was really productive. Um, because our relationship changed the minute I told him I was pregnant. And it really went into a lot of abuse from that point. There were times that I wish I wasn't pregnant. And that's really hard in a lot of ways because I knew better. I couldn't imagine bringing a baby into that situation because the longer I was pregnant, it was like the worse he treated me. And something happens to a woman when they're pregnant. And I don't care if she's a single mother or not, there is some vulnerability that comes with that. And I wanted to believe in more because I was always the rainbows and puppy dog, waggy puppy dog tail kind of girl. The rose-colored glasses. So I wanted to believe in more. I went to my OBGYN and I had a test done. And I found out the baby had a genetic disorder. And they suspected it was trisomy 18. And I went in for the amniocentesis, and it was confirmed. So I just didn't even know what to say or what to do. They did the genetic testing, and they showed that while neither he nor I really had any markers for it, except for my age. I mean, that's really what they told me was, I was old. I had advanced maternal age going against me. And my midwife and doctor sat down with me, and they told me the risks, and they told me that a lot of women opt to have an abortion because having a baby that had trisomy 18 was really, really hard on the mother. It took a lot to grow a baby that had trisomy 18, and they told me she would die. The chances are she wouldn't even make it to the first trimester. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I was really curious as to why I was given this child in this situation to learn from. So I decided to carry the baby. And when he found out that the baby had trisomy 18, things just really, really got worse. He didn't want a retarded child. I was devastated. I didn't know how to function, wondering every day, if she had already died, when she was going to die. That stuff was really, really, really hard. The abuse in our relationship got worse. And it wasn't any physical abuse, but it was a lot of spiritual, emotional, mental. He told me that the baby had trisomy because we had, out of marriage sex. And he told me God was punishing me. And there was a lot that I didn't want to accept with that because I don't believe that having a baby with trisomy is a punishment. There's no baby. I don't care what the situation is. It's not a punishment. So those things were really, really hard to hear. And he didn't connect with the baby at all. I know that my kids watched me cry every day. And, being boys, they just wanted their mom to be okay. They saw what was going on. And they knew enough to let me go through what I was going through without adding undue pressure on me. The first trimester went by. The second trimester went by. And every time I went in for my appointment, my midwife prepared me for the fact that she was going to die. And I went through a lot of natural therapies and a lot of alternative things, because there were people out there that were saying, a baby's genetics change all the time. Doesn't matter what they're diagnosed with. And I really started to believe that. And so far, this baby was beating the odds. And, my personal life was getting worse. He stopped having sex with me. I think I just repulsed him. I think the idea of this baby repulsed him. And I had no idea what it was like to lose a child. I had no idea at all. So the third trimester rolled around, and she was still growing, and her heartbeat was strong. And I actually had faith and hope that maybe she was going to be different. So I passed my due date. And my midwife said, you really need to think about induction. I know you want to have this baby natural, but this pregnancy can't go on for you. It's too hard on your body. And she said, if you don't go into labor by your next appointment, we're going to discuss induction. And I said, okay. So when I was 42 weeks, I was going into my appointment. I felt the baby roll, and then I felt her settle. And she was just a really sweet little baby. She was just very gentle. Like, her energy was gentle. She was never, sometimes, like with some of my other kids, they would kick me and disrupt my sleep, and they were so active and so hardcore, that it exhausted me. And she just never did that to me. She was just a very sweet little baby. When I got into the midwife, which was at Baylor Hospital, she listened for her heartbeat. And she's like, I need to get the Doppler because I'm not hearing her heartbeat. And I said, okay, please do. She got the Doppler. We didn't hear anything. And she said, I think your baby died. And I want you to have an ultrasound. So I agreed. I called him and I said, the baby died. I need an ultrasound to confirm it. And he said, don't you dare get an ultrasound, because you're going to hurt that baby. And I did it anyway. I just said, you need to come up here because the baby died. And I went in for the ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat. And I had been preparing myself for this moment. But I don't think that there's any way you can prepare yourself for that. I just don't. So my midwife talked to me about inducing. And she said, I know how much you wanted to have this natural. She's like, so let's just give it a little bit and see if your body realizes that she's gone and you go into labor naturally. So I did. And we waited 4 hours, and then my labor started. And she said, I really want you to think about pain medication. She said, because this is going to be hard. And she said, normally a baby helps in the birthing process, and this baby's not going to help you. And as tempting as it was, I told her I wanted to feel everything. I didn't want to suppress anything. So my labor lasted 9 hours. When it came time to push, at that moment, I didn't want to. Because I knew what was on the other end of that. I knew I would have to face the fact that my baby wasn't alive. And I pushed, and I pushed, and I pushed. Mainly because I didn't have a choice. And she came out, and I sort of heard my midwife cheer a little bit. And I was so scared to turn around and look. She let me have my baby standing. And she said she didn't die of trisomy. She had a true knot in her cord. She died from the knot in her cord, not from trisomy. And I didn't look. And they took the baby and they weighed her and they measured her. And she was this perfect little baby. But it took me about a half an hour before I can look at her. And they asked me if I wanted to hold her, and I said no. Because I didn't think I could. I didn't think I was strong enough. There was a part of me that knew I would forever regret it if I didn't. So I did. And I can say hands down, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And she had prepared me pretty well beforehand to tell me that she would start breaking down. Her body, her tissue would start breaking down. And I held this perfect little girl that really didn't look like she had trisomy, except for she was little. She was 4 pounds. And I watched her start breaking down. And I watched her nose start to bleed. There was just a lot of blood and her skin was starting to break down. And I knew I had to give her up. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. But I did it. And my midwife said, I think you should go home. I don't think you want to stay in the maternity ward. And I said, I don't. So I left the hospital about midnight. And I went straight to a bar. And I drank as fast as I could. Because I didn't even know what the next day was going to be like. I didn't even know what the next day was going to be like. I didn't even know how to make it through the night. You know, I opted not to have pictures taken of her. I had made that decision before when I was pregnant, when I looked at all the people that had had pictures done of their babies and these lifeless babies. And I didn't think I could bear it. And I can tell you, I regret that. Because I don't really remember what she looked like. I don't really remember what she looked like. So this was back in 2010. And, you know, it was like the funny thing is I'm a very spiritual person. I never worried about her spiritually. I never worried about where she went or anything else. I knew she was just fine. What I was unprepared for was the human side of me and how much that forever changed me. And just the depth of pain that I felt. It threw me into a tailspin and into grieving that I can't even imagine. I know a couple days after, my boyfriend had come home and he found me crying in the bathroom and he opened the door and he said, "Get over it like I did." And while it was really harsh and it stung really bad, because I was like, I don't think this is something you can ever get over, as what I thought to myself. But I knew I had to pull myself together. I knew that I had to get up every day and pretend like life was okay. And so I did that. And I got really, really good at pretending. I don't think that's something I'll ever get over. I don't think that I gave her what she should have had when I was pregnant. Because of what I was going through in my relationship. And yeah, that is an excuse. Because I could have blocked it out. I could have walked away. And I didn't. I didn't. And so she suffered emotionally right along with me. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to be a better person. I learned how to really be careful of how my actions affect other people. I went through 2 years of hell after that, without a doubt. The abuse got so much worse. And I stayed in the relationship because I was totally lost. And I think it fit for where I was. I think it fit for how much I hated myself. And it taught me so much. And I made the promise that I would be better. And that when I healed, I would stop living a lie. And I'll say it probably took me to 2012 maybe 2000. No, after that. 2013, before I really stopped living a lie. 2014, I grew more in my power. 2015, I'm firmly in my power. I am more now the person that I wanted to be than I ever have been. And it's because of that little baby. And I named her Milana, which means light in Hawaiian. It's very fitting, because that's definitely what she brought to my life. So we all have our story. We all have that part of us that makes us human. I will never stop trying to be better than what I am. I will never stop believing that people shouldn't hurt each other. And I will never stop searching for people to surround myself with that just have those same beliefs. Because she has a legacy in me. And I let her down before. And I won't ever do it again. So that's my story. And it's difficult. It's still difficult today. If you want, you can check out my blog. You can check out my other videos. My blog will be posted in the description down below this video. I will talk to you next time. Bye.